Hi everyone, you're watching Shape Up with Sue Daley. Today we're going to be working with shapes that you can use as along your borders, so you're not doing lots of work, sewing lots of shapes together. We can just do border pieces, and it can change the whole look of your quilt just by adding a simple pieced border around, whether it be pieced right to the edge or whether you're just piecing up some English paper piecing shapes and appliquing them onto the border that you already have onto your quilt. So there's many border shapes that we have in our range. We have some scallop shapes, which are shaped like this. That's our 2-inch, our 3-inch, and recently we introduced some little 1-inch ones that are really cute. Quite recently we introduced another shape to our range. It's very similar to our scallop shape, however it just has a pointed top on it. So it looks like a scallop except a pointed top, and you can see it looks like a little house really. So these ones we can just cut all these out and sew them together, and they're going to make a little border piece for us. So I'm going to start with that one today. We're going to take our template, pop it on our fabric and our rotating mat, and we're going to cut, turning your mat as you go. So we have our pieces here. So take your paper and your fabric, pop your paper onto the wrong side of your fabric and your glue pen. We're going to glue around the outside edge, around 4 edges, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're not going to glue across the bottom edge. So we're going to come up the side and gluing just in from the edge on the paper. So it's going to look like that. And we're going to leave our little 1/4-inch seam allowance unglued. And the reason we do that is because if this is going to be on a border around the outside of a quilt, this will get sewn in to your seam allowance. Okay, and I'll show you what that's going to look like in a moment. So what I've done is I've sewn some of these together. So they look like a row of little houses or a big fat fence. So you can see I've alternated the colour, and it looks like that, and I haven't folded the bottom up. Here is a row of our little tiny new 1-inch curved scallops, cute as a button. And we have the pointed ones and the curved ones, and I've alternated those. So we have one curved, one pointed. So you can do lots of different things with them. This one here, I've sewn it together so it's going to be like a border, so would make it into a square or a rectangle. So I've been able to sew one length down the side and then continue across the top, and I'd come down. And the reason you can sew these together here is because the point of this scallop edge is at a 90-degree angle. So when you put a 90-degree angle and a 90-degree angle together, you'll end up with 180 degrees, which is straight. So it's going to form this little type of pattern in the corner of your outside border. Okay, I'm going to run through a couple of quilts with you now that I've used different shapes on borders so you can see what I'm talking about. The first one I'm going to take is probably the antique sample, which I think you've all seen before, but I'll just show you part of that. You can see here that I've used the 3-inch scallops around the outside edge. So that little 1/4-inch seam allowance that we didn't fold over the edge of our card has been sewn into the seam allowance of this piece and this piece. So that's why we don't fold that over. And they've all been joined up in one long row, and then I've appliqued it onto my border and then sewn my border to my main part of my quilt. And then on the corner, because they don't come round, they don't flow round as one, I've just added a leaf shape to fill in the corner, or you could sew a little square in there, or you can do with whatever you want. You can sew a flower, whatever you want, however you want to finish it off. So that's that one. This one you saw also maybe last week or the week before, what I did with this border. Okay, this was one of the projects out of my book called Joined at the Heart, and I've used curved thimble shapes, so they're different to our scallop shape. The scallop shapes have straight edges, they're curved at the top and they're straight edges down the side. The curved thimble has a curved top and it has edges that come in slightly, so that when you sew them together they will form a circle. So I've just sewn 4 here and then joined it with the heart shape that we worked with a couple of weeks back. And so it has created a border going around the outside of my quilt. The next one I can show you is from the quilt One Day at a Time. And this one, if I hold that up there, you can see that around the edge there is just hexagons sewed together. So you can see on here we have just sewn the hexagons and it's made almost a zigzag type shape around the edge. And just the last one I want to show you is another one that was from my book. And again, a different border. So this time I was using the pointed thimble shape. So it was the same as the curved thimble shape, except it has a point on it. And I've added a square in there. And then I've brought it up here, added another square to join them at the top, and then put some applique leaves on. And you can see the effect that that's had as a border. Now there's a mountain of things you can do. You can sew little hexagon flowers around the little hexagon flowers together and put them around the outside of a quilt. You can use them in inner borders or outer borders. If you have a look at the quilt behind me, you will see that it's a row by row quilt. And if you look at each row, you can see how easily that you could make that into a border and put it around the outside of your quilt. So the top row is made with our small tumbler shape, and it's sewn together. There's 16 pieces and it makes like a wagon wheel shape. The second row is squares and half square triangles. The third row here is our hexagon flower petals. So hexagon flower petals are just like your hexagons, but they have a curved top on them, so they actually look like a flower. So you could make those and put them all the way around a border edge. You can see what I've done in the outside of the quilt there. I've just put 3 together and then up into the corners. This row here is done with our spool shapes, or in the Netherlands they're called cloches. They are done with the spool shape here and joined up with a square. They look like little bow ties or spools. And again, you can put them into a border. Now on the outside, what I've done with the border on this particular quilt is use the 2-inch equilateral triangle, and I've sewn them and top and tailed them in different colours. So I have a 2-inch equilateral triangle here, and you top and tail them, and so it looks like a sawtooth border. And I've again repeated it back on the outer edge. And so there's a mountain of things that you can do, just creating different borders with different shapes. And it's again just playing with paper, and if it goes together, it sews together, just like a jigsaw puzzle. So I hope that I've inspired you today about doing something different on your borders. And sometimes you've got a very ordinary quilt and you just want to jazz it up a little bit. Add a little bit of paper piecing around the borders and it'll change the whole look of your quilt. And remember, you've been watching Shape Up with Sue Daley. And remember to share it on your Twitter, Facebook, or on your blog. And let the whole world join in with the fun we're having every Tuesday.